before I tell you how I lost the first of my memories, and my last good hiding place, and very nearly the whole world. You should know 4 things. My mother taught them to me at night, in a low voice, the way other mothers teach a child the names of birds. She wanted me to know the ground before I had to stand on it. Then the story can start. First, the world is a ring. 7 great lands set shoulder to shoulder around one storm-drowned ocean no ship has ever crossed, the girdle of 7 roosts. You can't cross the middle, you can only go around. That's the reason for a great deal of walking, later. Second, over each land lives an elder dragon, a creature the size of a mountain, older than counting, 1 to a land, and no more. For 1,000 years the elders kept a single law. Made among themselves before my people could write, they take no side. Whatever we small warm creatures do to each other in the mud, the great cold mines and the mountains do not stoop to it. That neutrality was the roof over the world. It's the thing that broke. Third, below the elders fly the lesser dragons, lesser only in size and years, never in mind. They live in families called flights. 400 years ago, the flights scattered, each one nursing some old wound, until most of the sky went empty and afraid. Fourth, there are people like me, whisperers. We hear what a dragon truly says, the words under the noise, and are heard back. My mother called the place the hearing happens, the still spot behind the teeth, the quiet. So do I. In her, it was a small gift. She could calm a sick animal and hear it faintly. In me, it is not small, though I spent 22 years pretending it was. Because in the land where I was born, a whisperer isn't counted a person, a whisperer is a tool. And when a tool is found, it gets a collar, a band forged from marrow, the gray waxy stuff rendered down from a dead dragon's bones, that muzzles the gift and the will together. My mother wore one. It's how she died. For 1,000 years the roof held. My story begins on the evening it started to come down. I didn't know that yet. I was standing at a rail in a border town called Threadbare, hood up, being nobody. I'd made an art of being nobody, with 2 coppers I hadn't been paid and a dragon dying in the pit below me. Close enough to touch, close enough to hear. Let me tell you about the pit. The dragon in the pit was dying, and everyone in Threadbare had paid a copper to watch. I stood at the rail with the rest of them, hood up, hands loose, doing the one thing I'd trained my whole life to do in a crowd, look like nobody worth remembering. It was almost dark. The mud of the killing yard had gone the color of old bruises, and torchlight slid along the poached drake's flank where the harvesters had already cut her open along the spine. They wanted to see how much marrow she'd be worth, how much of that gray, waxy resin they could render out of her bones, before she was even cold. She'd be worth a great deal. That was the problem. A live drake in agony burns her own marrow up, and burned marrow is worthless. So the poachers wanted her calm. And calm is not a thing you can beat into a dragon, though you could see in the welts that they'd tried. She won't settle, the yardmaster told the buyer. A trader down from Carven with rings on every finger. Give her the night. She'll bleed quiet by morning. By morning she's spent, the trader said. I want her drawn tonight, or I want my copper back. I should have walked away. I'd walked away from 100 pits just like this one, in a dozen border towns just like Threadbare. I had the trick of it down to a science. You fix your eyes on the middle distance. You let the screaming go through you like bad weather. And you tell yourself the lie that keeps a whisperer alive, that it isn't your voice they're crying for, because they don't know you can hear them. Then the drake turned her head and looked straight at me. You, she said, little furnace. You heard me 3 streets ago and you kept walking. I kept my face empty. That's the first thing you learn. Before you learn to listen, before you learn to answer, you learn to keep your face as blank as a swept hearth while a dying creature speaks to you across a crowd. Because the law where I come from is old and simple. A whisperer is not a person. A whisperer is a resource. And a resource gets a collar. I know you can hear me, she said. Her voice in my head was low and cracked, the way a fire sounds in its last hour. All settling, no flame. I can smell it on you. The quiet. You've got the quiet in your blood.e. The yardmaster spat. Anyone good with animals? He called along the rail. Half a joke, the way you'd ask if anyone could sing. A copper to whoever gets her to lie down. 2 if she stops that noise. That caught me harder than the Drake's eyes or her voice. Because stepping forward as a handler is a coward's disguise, and a good one. Nobody suspects the person who volunteers. Everybody suspects the person who won't. So I did what I always did. The wrong thing, dressed up as the safe one. I raised my hand. In Threadbare, they know me as Seren, the poacher's fixer. The wiry one who's good with sick stock and doesn't ask where the stock came from. It's a useful reputation. A fixer has a reason to be near dragons, hands-on with dragons, close enough to murmur to one, and murmuring is what they think I do. Sweet nothings, hoarse gentling. They think the calm comes out of my mouth. It doesn't. It comes out of the place behind my teeth that has no name in any human tongue, the place my mother called the quiet. She called it that right up until the day they fitted her collar and the quiet in her went out like a snuffed candle. I climbed down the ladder into the pit. The mud swallowed my boots to the ankle. Up close, the Drake was huge and ruined. A weeping coast breed, a long way from any coast, her scales gone dull as something drowned. She smelled of blood and hot copper, and under that, of fear. Fear smells the same on a dragon as it does on a person. That's one of several things I know about dragons that would get me hanged for saying out loud. I put my hand on her jaw, where the scale is softest. To the crowd, it looked like gentling. To the yardmaster, 2 coppers well spent. There, I said. The true way, the inside way, opening the quiet just a crack. There. I'm here. She shuddered under my palm. Traitor's work, she said. But there was no venom left in it. Working the pits, holding us still for the knife. I'm not holding you for the knife. Then what? I didn't have an answer that was both true and safe, so I gave her the true one. I'm holding you so you don't spend your last hour screaming. So when it comes quiet. It won't hurt, and you'll be somewhere better when it does. Something moved through her. Not peace. Dragons don't do peace. Not the way we mean it. But the screaming stopped. The real screaming. The kind only I could hear. The kind that had been sawing at the inside of my skull for 3 streets. Above us, the crowd made a low, satisfied sound. To them, she'd simply stopped thrashing, and stopped. Somewhere better, she said. Show me. Show me the coast, little furnace. So I gave her the coast. It's the one mercy I own that no one can collar. A picture I push into a dying dragon's mind, gentle, so it has somewhere to be that isn't the pit. Gray water. The lonely cry of gulls. A tide sliding in over the drowned streets of a city neither of us had ever seen, and both of us somehow remembered. She in her blood, I in mine. And here's the cost, the part the stories leave out. Whispering isn't free. It burns. Every word I gave her, I paid for out of my own body heat. I felt it start, the warmth crawling up my neck, the first bright ache behind my eyes, the tremor a whisperer learns to hide the way a drunk hides his hands. We measure it in embers. Spend a few and you've got a fever by morning. Spend too many and it's worse than a fever. My mother spent too many once at the end. She forgot my face before she forgot her own. So I was careful. I gave the Drake the coast in small change, a little at a time. She was gone before the harvesters finished setting up their frame. I felt her go. No scream, not even a word. Just the quiet closing over the place where she'd been, the way water closes over a dropped stone. Then there was only the yard, and the torches, and the yardmaster pressing 2 warm coppers into my hand. He told me I had a gift, a real gift with animals. I nodded, the fever climbed, and I tasted copper. Half the Drake's blood from my hand, half my own, from where I'd bitten through my lip to keep my face empty while a person died under my palm and the whole town called her livestock. 2 coppers. I've been paid 2 coppers to hold the hand of the dying more times than I can count. I've never once been able to tell them that's what I was doing. I was halfway back to the boarding house, wiping the Drake off my palm with a fistful of straw, when the bells started. Not the market bells. The market bells are bronze and lazy, and they'd rung the yard closed an hour ago. These were the high iron bells on the watch spire, the ones I'd never heard ring in 5 years of living there. Every border town keeps bells like that for one thing only. When they finally sound, you understand what they mean before you finished being afraid. The whole street stopped at once. The fixers, the last of the market, a knot of drovers by the well. Every face turned up toward the spire, like a field of flowers turning the wrong way, toward the dark instead of the light. A rider came in off the Pharaoh Vance road. I say rider, the horse was half dead, foaming and blowing, and the man on its back wasn't so much riding as being carried by an animal that had forgotten how to stop. He staggered through the gate and hauled up in the square. The iron bells hammered above him. He shouted something, the wind tore it away, and he shouted it again. I was close enough to catch it the second time. War, he said. Fair. Vance has declared war. On all of us, the whole ring, every land. They put it in writing and nailed it to the accord stone. He broke off, coughing. A wet, wrong sound. And I saw the dark stain down his side wasn't road mud. They've broken the neutrality. They marched into Solheim. They put a chain on the Ashen Sage. Nobody breathed. A chain on the Ashen Sage. He might as well have said they'd chain the tide, or the turning of the year, or the sun. An elder was the one fixed thing in the whole turning world, the thing my grandmother's grandmother had been able to count on. Whatever men did to each other in the mud, the great neutral minds in the mountains stayed above it. You did not chain an elder any more than you chained the sky. Pharaoh Vance had just chained the sky. Pharaoh Vance had just chained the sky. The fever was full in me now, the Drake's death and the war's first hour burning together behind my eyes. And in the heat of it, I did a stupid thing. I opened the quiet. Just to crack. Just to listen. And I heard them, all of them, not the rider, not the town, the dragons, every scattered flight for 100 miles, the little ash kites up in the high wood, the lone drakes in the hills, and something vast and slow far to the south that I had no name for. All of them at once crying out in the same broken note, the way a whole wood of birds goes up together at the shadow of a hawk. It wasn't words. It was underwords. It went through me and kept going. And I understood, standing there in the mud with 2 coppers in my fist, that the walking away part of my life was over. You can't unhear a thing like that. I'd spent 22 years keeping my face empty, and in the space of one held breath, the world had filled up past the point where an empty face could save me. Little Furnace, the Drake had called me, as if she'd known. As if they all knew. The way they always seemed to. That the quiet in my blood wasn't a thing I'd get to keep to myself much longer. I closed the quiet. It was like shutting a door against a flood. The iron bells rang on. The rider slid off his ruined horse into the arms of the drovers. And somewhere out in the dark beyond the wall, a dragon I would never meet grieved for an elder in a language only I could hear. I put my hood up, force of habit, as if there were anyone left worth hiding from. Then I went to find Maida. Because if the war had really come, there was one thing in Threadbare that mattered more than my own secret. Something small and alive and not mine to lose. And Maida Kor was the only person alive who knew where it was hidden.